Wow, what a roller coaster the last few weeks have been. Has been a little while since I put out a video. Obviously, the world went a little bit mad there for a while, and some could argue the world has still gone mad. But finally, in Australia at least, it does seem like there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and a little bit of normality is starting to return to people's lives. People are starting to return to work. Some people are starting to send their kids back to school. Things do seem to be heading back in the direction of normal, however you see that. So today I just wanted to sit down and give you a little bit of a market update in the Cairns market. Some of this stuff will be applicable to other markets, so well worth watch even if you're not looking at buying in Cairns or you don't own in Cairns, as some of the stats I look into are very easy to find and will give you a good insight to your local market as well, by looking at what I'm looking at here in Cairns. So I want to give you a bit of a market update, and then I want to give you a little bit of a guide if you are looking at selling in 2020. What's involved in this new market that we are in now, and doing a little bit business a bit differently, what's involved to actually get your property sold. So to jump into it, the Cairns market, there is good news and there is bad news. Firstly, when looking at any data set, especially when something drastic happens like the coronavirus has so quickly, the data for real estate is always lagged 30 to 60 days behind what actually occurred. And that's purely because when a buyer puts a contract on a property, that contract normally takes between 30 and 60 days to settle. So we do have that lag in information coming through, as the results typically aren't published until that property finally does settle. So any sales data, any sales prices that we're looking at are actually prices that were achieved 30 or 60 days ago. So there is that little bit of a lag there. So that's important to keep in the forefront of your mind when you are looking at recent sales, is that those recent sales, even though they may have settled yesterday, are actually sales that occurred 30 or 60 days ago. So for Cairns, looking at the turnover to begin with, if we go back to the 20th of Feb to the 20th of May, so that's about 60 days ago, the 30 days that happened 60 days ago, we had 294 properties settle in Cairns. So that was from the 20th of Feb to the 20th of May. In the 30 days from now, 30 days in the past, from the 21st of May to the 20th of April, sales dropped by 45%. That was the turnover. So we went from 294 sales in the month after the 20th of Feb to 163 sales in the month after the 21st of May. So a massive reduction in turnover. So turnover was down 45%, which is concerning. It essentially says there was less buyers in the market and less deals actually occurring. But nevertheless, there still was deals happening. People were still buying property. Ultimately, people still need a place to live. So property was still changing hands. It was just nowhere near as many as what was happening at the start of the year. Interesting, out of those 163 sales, there wasn't really any notable change in prices from the prices that we're seeing at the end of last year, start of this year, to those recent sales. Prices have remained pretty steady, which is really good news. But it is contrasted by that really drastic drop in turnover. Looking at the market currently, in the Cairns region, there's 2,467 properties on the market. That number is where it typically sits. We normally do sit around that 2,000 properties for sale. However, we normally are turning over about 20% of those each month. So in Cairns, we are selling sort of 300 to 400 properties each month, which keeps that supply ticking over. About that 20% turnover of active listings on the market are being sold each month. At the moment, we're seeing out of that 2,400 properties, 280 of them are marked under contract. So that sits in line with about those 163 sales, keeping in mind that properties will be under contract for a 30 to 60 day window. Going back into January and February, that number was probably sitting closer to 600. So we have seen a massive decline in turnover, but the number of listings on the market are the same. So thinking it from supply and demand, we do have a large oversupply of properties in the market, and demand is dropping. So Extrapolating that, and as much as prices haven't dropped at the moment, there is a good chance that moving into the future, people will start to compete more to secure the buyers that are in the marketplace. However, deals are still there and properties still are selling. So if you do want to sell and needing to sell in the next sort of 6 months, there still is that opportunity to secure a buyer, but we just need to do business a little bit differently and a little bit more tactically to secure a sale. So if you are looking at selling in 2020, what do you need to know? Well, first of all, there is currently still in place some restrictions around us being able to show the homes, and that at the moment is really related to two major things. Firstly, we can no longer conduct open homes for the time being, and that does take away a lot of your buyers that were on the fence, and if they weren't sure if a property was for them or not, they were still coming to the open homes and inspecting. We're now losing those buyers that were sort of on the fence, unsure, and that is a little bit hard when you are looking at selling, because a lot of those buyers that were on the fence, we were able to convert to buyers through having effective conversations with them. We could convert them from someone that was on the fence about your property to someone that went on to buy your property. So not being able to conduct open homes is a massive tool out of our tool belt, so to speak, when it comes to marketing properties. The other restriction at the moment is on tenanted properties. While legally we can still show tenanted properties, we do need the tenant's consent to be able to show them. So pre all this schmozzle happening, as long as we gave the tenant efficient notice, we were able to show the property, where now we actually need the tenant to consent. So depending on the tenant in your property, if you're looking at selling a tenanted property, this can really make or break the sales campaign. So before looking at taking a tenanted property to the market, we do need to have a good conversation with the tenant and make sure that they are okay for us to show the property, and make sure that there is that mutual agreement in place. The other interesting thing that we've noticed is we really have had a massive decline in buyer inquiries and buyer inspections. Now, I think this is from a couple of things. We're no longer doing open homes. We're losing those sort of people that were on the fence looking at buying. They're no longer attending open homes. So you really only got the serious lookers coming in and looking at your property. So positioning your property online is now more important than ever. It needs to present well, so if the property's vacant, I really recommend staging your property at the moment. I recommend using the biggest ads possible to capture the buyer's attention, as there are so many more properties on the market. To cut through that noise, you really need to be standing out. So if you are living in your property, make sure you're decluttering it. Really focusing on all of that advice that we've always given is now more important than ever. Like I say, buyers are inspecting fewer properties, so the active buyers we do have in the marketplace, typically last year probably would have inspected 8 to 10 properties. I really believe that's now halved, and your active buyers are only inspecting 3 or 4 properties, if that, before buying something. So making sure you're on the top of their shortlist and actually getting inspected is really crucial. So a couple of ways to do that is by property videos, nice detailed property videos showing the property, really highlighting anything that may not be obvious in the photos. Using floor plans as well, so people can see the layout. Once again, especially if you've got a little bit of a layout that's a little bit quirky and you may want to highlight a feature, that's where your floor plans really come into use. And making the best use of your property descriptions to really highlight things, once again, that might not be immediately obvious just looking at the photos. The third and final thing that you really need to be aware of if you are looking at selling in 2020 is pricing your property correctly. Now, as before, I was mentioning that 30 to 60 day lag on sales data. So if you're looking at a sale that happened and settled in January, you're actually looking at a property that sold back in December. Now, as much as we haven't seen prices shift yet, I really don't think looking at December sale prices will be an effective tool if you're trying to sell today. What's the better tactic at the moment is to actually look at the properties that are currently on the market and price yourself competitive to them. So rather than pricing yourself with the recent sales, you really need to be competing against properties in your similar price bracket and making sure that the online advertising positions your property within the 2 to 3 best valued properties in that price range. I really believe, and I've seen it time and time again, that people do more shop in price ranges than they do in specific suburbs. It's amazing how often I've shown people through a property in Edge Hill and they've gone and bought in Moorabool or Irville. So really look at the suburbs surrounding yours and the price bracket similar to yours is to find out what properties are perceived as good value and put yourself in the buyer's shoes when looking at those properties to make sure your property is priced competitively. Now's not the time to be putting a property up with a slightly higher price and crossing your fingers and hoping that a buyer just stumbles upon it. When we had effective open homes, that did happen, but now is not the time. With buyers having limited inspections, it really is important to be pricing our properties competitively if you do want to secure a sale. The other thing that is so crucial, if the market does start to fall, essentially what we're going to see is prices reducing over time. So if you do come to market and you're priced just above where the market is, you're going to miss out on those buyers. If you wait 4 or 5 weeks and drop your price, you still may be above where the market is looking. If you drop your price again, you still may be above the market. So if you do go to market and you're getting no interest, it's important to be really aggressive with price reductions in order to actually get to where the market price is. There's no point chasing your tail over 3 or 4 months and dropping with the market dropping. You're not going to price it to attract buyers. If you are getting no interest or limited interest, you really need to be competitive with that price drop and catch the market before it falls rather than chasing it downwards. So that gives you a little bit of a guide as to the data that I'm looking at with the Cairns market, and some of the restrictions, some of the marketing tactics, and some of the pricing tactics that we are using at the moment to secure sales for our clients. So at the end of the day, even if the market is dropping, people will always need a place to call home, and that's important to remember to moving forward if you are looking at selling. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm looking forward to putting out a heap more content now that we're well and truly back into the swing of things. And if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out and contact me either by mobile, email, or any of the social channels. Have a fantastic week.